谢谢，谢谢。你好. You have just heard half of all of the Mandarin that I know. So thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm honored to be here. Thank you to my hosts for being wonderful guides and supports, and especially thank you to the volunteers who have taken very good care of us. I earlier had to go to the restroom, and 3 of them came with me just to make sure. So I really appreciate being here, and I'm humbled by the previous speakers. And you have heard theory, you've heard research, you've heard recommendations for practice, and I just want to assure you that as I speak, I will do none of that, okay? I am going to talk about social and emotional learning and humor, and how to use humor to facilitate, to help teaching social and emotional learning. If you think about, well, actually, yesterday we were touring around different parts and back roads, and it was very bumpy. There were bumps in the road, and there were holes in the road, and I thought to myself, this is a very good automobile. It's got very good shock absorbers. Humor is a shock absorber for the bumps in the road when you're teaching. It softens the road. It invites people to relax and be ready to learn. That's why I'm introducing using humor as part of social emotional education. So, I'm going to start first with talking a little bit about SEL, some of which is going to look very familiar to you. Has anyone ever seen this wheel here before? Every single presenter before has had this wheel here. I guess I have a pointer too. So, you'll notice there's a second wheel here, which is very similar. It's got the same 5 areas. The main difference is the center. This wheel was developed by a group of social emotional learning educators in Singapore, and they have determined that, as Dr. Elias was discussing, that only social emotional learning skill building is not enough. There has to be guidance, there has to be a compass, there has to be a way for our students to make good choices, healthy choices, choices that build community. So they've including values as part of the teaching of SEL. I also wanted to make the point that even though SEL has been around in Taiwan for decades, it's actually been around a lot longer than that. This is a report card from a middle school in New York City in 1960. And you'll notice on the report card, there are the typical academic classes. Okay, maybe we don't do typewriting anymore, but others we still have. But now, look down here, 1960, we have courtesy and dependability and self-control, and so these are SEL skills. And they were available and being assessed in 1960. So this is not a new concept. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking it's pretty courageous for a speaker to take his report card and put it up on the screen for everybody to see. Well, you're right. This is my sister's report card. When we're teaching, when we're hoping to teach our students, whether it's social emotional learning or any other subject, our first order of business is to pull them away from whatever distractions they've come in with. It's very rare to have the student that comes in and sits down and says, "Teach me." Very rare. Usually, they're thinking about their phones, what's going on at home, something other than what you're hoping for them to learn and incorporate. So our first order of business as teachers is to interrupt their preoccupation with everything else and get them focused and engaged. Similarly, as was mentioned by both of my colleagues earlier, we not only want to focus on cognitive skills, but also on affective skills, on emotional skills. So our job is to address both the cognitive and the affective. By using humor, a couple of things occur. We understand the relationship between the head and the heart. Think about it. When you laugh with someone else, you're sharing an emotional experience with them. That's why we enjoy being together and laughing together, because we feel connected emotionally. Now, that being said, how many people here have a sense of humor? Please raise your hand. Okay, thank you. How many do not? I believe you. Okay, how many know someone who does not? A lot of us. When we talk about sense of humor, all of us value it. There are very few things you can say to someone that is more insulting than you don't have a sense of humor. You don't know how to laugh. So it's very important that we recognize that not only is it useful, but it's valuable to all of us to have a way of bringing humor and laughter into our lives, and because of its effect to engage us, to bring it into our teaching as well. So I actually lied a little bit. I'm going to show you a few research studies that support what I'm talking about, that say humor and laughter actually enhances our ability to teach effectively. And I'm not going to spend time going through them. You can certainly research them on their own. And there are many, many more that are recent, and none of them suggest it gets in the way. What's the number one thing you want to do when your students are in front of you, when you're hoping to teach them those social emotional skills that we've been identifying all day? You want them to be engaged. You want them to be listening. You want them to be paying attention. How many things can you say or do to a group of people, or teenagers, or children, that's pleasurable and enjoyable and that they want to do, and still it serves your purpose? I mentioned the common emotional experience. It's immediate. It's right now. It's happening now. It's not in the future. It's not in the past. We have research showing that humor and laughter reduces tension and anxiety. It calms us down. And it also seems to be healthy as well. It enhances health in a number of different ways. Humor is one of the few educational strategies that does as much good for the teacher as it does for the student. So if you're able to utilize humor and invite your students to utilize humor, everybody wins. There's no downside to it, except maybe looking like her. Good teachers are the ones that challenge young minds without losing their own. Our job is to challenge and enjoy what we're doing at the same time. As Carmel mentioned earlier, we not only have to focus on teaching social emotional learning with children, but with the staff. And when I've worked with school systems, they say, well, how quickly are we going to see results? And my experience is it takes 2 to 3 years before we see significant results in the student population. But what I've also noticed is that within a year, we see positive results among teachers. So it's really valuable all the way across. The most challenging group of people are administrators, because they have so much responsibility, they're much more hesitant to take whatever risks or enjoy humor as much. So here are some ways that I thought of that I thought you could take with you as you go back to your classrooms and schools. One of the things we found is that something you can do immediately that will benefit every student is to greet them every single day. And there are a number of videos on the web that you can find of how teachers go about greeting their students. You'll notice this one has, the student can choose which way they want to be greeted. They can handshake, they can fist bump, they can high five, they can wave. I'm not sure what that one is. Others I've seen where they can do fist bump, high fives, or they can dance. And it's really fun to watch. Plus, it gets everybody energized, and it's a way for the teacher to immediately connect and engage the student. So every student is greeted every single day. Imagine an SEL lesson that you want to teach. Find a way to incorporate humor and playfulness into the lesson. This one is finding friends. So you have students work within the classroom, and you say, who has glasses? And they have to find someone who has glasses. Who loves ice cream? Well, everybody does, but they list one. Who can climb a tree, so on and so on. So what this does is it creates a social emotional context for greetings, for interaction, for connection, for building friendships, but it does it in a playful, enjoyable way. Hopscotch. I don't know if people play hopscotch in Taiwan, but in the yes, I'm seeing heads nod. But hopscotch, when I grew up, had numbers. And you would throw things and you go number 1, then number 1, 2, then number 1, 2, 3. But imagine you built your SEL lesson into a traditional, fun game that children are used to playing. And look at the message that these kids get. They start at I am, and then first they have to be I am brave, then I am loved, then I am creative, I am smart, I am powerful, I'm imaginative, I'm kind, I'm truthful, I'm helpful, and they finish with I'm important. Dressing up is a great way to be playful without ever having to have a sense of humor. How many people feel like they are good at being funny, playful, or humorous? 2 people. Good. Okay. In fact, we all are. It's just what you're willing to do and getting over those shy impediments that you might have. So one way is to dress up as someone important. Here's an example in the US. The American President Abraham Lincoln was also known as Honest Abe, so you could do a whole lesson around honesty if you were talking about Lincoln. But I was working with a high school teacher who was going to do a lesson on Lincoln, and he thought that he needed to do a little something extra with his students to keep their attention. You have to realize that all the student has to do is walk into the room, and he or she will immediately know what it is we're talking about today and what we're likely to learn. So we can use dressing up as a way to do that. Another possibility is a child game in charades. I don't know if you're familiar with charades. It's where you act out book titles or movie titles or different words, and you can do that in a number of different ways, which are very often funny. But imagine if you took some of those skills or feelings words from that circle, if you took those things and you had your students act them out so they had to guess what the word was. Again, they're learning the words, they're learning what it looks like or how it might feel, and they're having fun at the same time. Pictionary. Is Pictionary in Taiwan? Yeah? Okay. So Pictionary, you have a board and you have a a word or a phrase, and your team has to guess from your drawing what that word or phrase is. Imagine you play Pictionary, but again, with social emotional concepts or words or feelings. You're doing the same teaching, but you're doing it in a way that's fun. And I'm sure there are many other games that children play here where you could translate those into social emotional activities. Let's do this for a moment. What I would like you to do is I would like you to turn to the person next to you. This is going to be harder for those of you wearing masks, by the way. Don't be shy. Turn to the person next to you, and one of you decide that you'll be the giver and the other the receiver. And then I want you, without using any words, to tell the other person what emotion you're thinking of. Go ahead. Okay. Anybody still trying to guess? No? Okay, good. I hope what you noticed is that it was fun, maybe a little bit embarrassing. Smile, energy level goes up, and you're immediately engaged with someone else. This is what we seek to do as teachers. This is what we seek to do in social emotional education. Put those two together, it makes perfect sense to do things like this. When you have bits of information that you want your students to learn or to know or to hold on to, illustrate with fun, playful things. I was looking out at the materials out in the hallway. The materials are terrific. The illustrations are over-the-top wonderful. We were actually even looking at a book that had little funny jokes and sayings inside. But every one of those had wonderful, playful, child-friendly illustrations. So as you have things for your children to learn, know, remember, attach it to something fun, playful, often visual. We started today with someone playing beautiful, beautiful music. Music is another way to connect heart and head. I like to think about humor and laughter as music. It's something everyone enjoys, values. The difference between humor and laughter as music and what we heard this morning is music is all of us can do it. And all of us can do it well. Saw this recently in Greece. It's just a stairway, like any other stairway. But every time you walk up, you see a message. It can be a playful message. It can be like hopscotch. You can have certain messages that you want children to understand or incorporate or value. So it's just the thought of taking the everyday and building it in to your social emotional environment. Carmel was talking about the importance of school culture. Imagine you have a school culture where things are fun, things are playful. I was working with a school, an elementary school, and I was meeting with the principal and some of the teachers, and it was maybe 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and a buzzer goes off or a bell goes off, and he stops the meeting. He says, "Wait a minute, you have to see this." He takes me out into the hallway, and every classroom empties into the hallway, and they play music, and everybody's dancing. Everybody's dancing. And they found that the last hour of school had a lot more energy after that than it did before. Similarly, I was at another elementary school, and I was talking to the school psychologist who was describing to me all the difficulties he's encountering with the mental health issues that have certainly been described here. And I said, "How do you do it day in and day out?" He says, I can't explain it, but I'll show you. He took me into the lunchroom, and then he started playing with the kids. And he says, that just enlivens me and wakes me up and gives me the energy that I need to get through the day. Play with your students. It serves you, and it serves them, and those social emotional competencies, those character values, all get played out and learned time and time again. So here are some others. I'll read these out so they translate clearly. Take a story and rewrite it with missing punctuation or spellings and have the students check it and have the students figure out what the problems are. Create a social emotional learning vocabulary list and then create, you know what a progressive story is? It's where one person starts telling a story and then the next person continues, then the next person continues. Have a progressive story, but the only rule is the students have to incorporate some part of social and emotional learning. Create a commercial, a TV commercial, or a video. Give out the answers to tests and let the students make up the questions. They still have to learn the same things. Have them create a speech on a fun topic that they would enjoy talking about and have it connected somehow to social, emotional, and character development. Here are some cautions. Make sure that your classroom environment is safe and that no one is going to be hurt or ridiculed for what they say or do. Don't work too hard to be funny. It's not that difficult. If it doesn't come easily to you, practice, get help, get support, use props, games, things like that. Do what's comfortable for you. Don't stretch too hard. This should be fun. Try and tie it to social emotional learning. Try and make it relevant somehow, not just fun for the sake of fun all the time. Though I allow that too, especially at the beginning of the day. Never use humor that causes someone else to feel bad. Shaming, making fun of, bullying, never, ever, ever. One of the things that I didn't mention is that I'm past president of the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor. That's a real organization. It's international, based in the United States, and it's for professionals who use humor, laughter, and play in their work. If you're interested in this, all of their things right now are done in English, but I'm sure there's opportunities. That's the website for them. So as long as we're doing commercials, here's another one that I think is very important and very relevant. You're going to come away from today wishing you could learn more, wishing you could practice more, build relationships with colleagues who also do similar things. And through Rutgers and St. Elizabeth, we have the SEL Academy, the Academy for Social Emotional Learning in Schools, where we have a series of online courses that allow you to learn the technique in detail, and at the end, you can actually get certified in social emotional education or in social emotional administration. These are the different classes, different streams. We also have an accelerated track for those of you that have been involved in social emotional learning for some time, that it's a shortened version of the same set of competencies. Those of you who are in administrative positions, social emotional leadership is a track that we provide. These are the things you'll learn there. Looking at curriculum is another element that the online courses through the Academy provide. And they provide to educators all over the world. And we've accommodated to time changes, we've accommodated to language issues to some degree. So if this is interesting to you, I encourage you to follow up social emotional learning in schools. That being said, I want to thank you for your attention. and I will share the rest of my knowledge of Mandarin. 再见. Okay.
Thank you very much.